What are people expecting from comedy shows these days? I don't understand. Space Force is debuting on Netflix today, and if, like me, you are a huge fan of The Office and you enjoyed Upload and Parks and Recreation, then you were excited for this, particularly because it's not just Greg Daniels who's behind this. Steve Carell is also at work creating it, and he's the star, and boy, have we missed him in comedies. So I was really surprised to see the reaction to this online is really, really tepid. I don't know how else to describe it. I mean, critics don't really like it. And I couldn't really put my finger on. It was interesting. I try not to do this because I don't want to, you know, poison the well or steal other people's thoughts. But as I was watching it, I started reading reviews and was just shocked at people's reactions. I was like, why are people disliking this so much? Because I had a completely different experience. So before I say my thoughts about the show, I just encourage you, if you're new to the channel and if you want to hear my review other shows as I do them on a weekly basis, and sometimes movies, sometimes even a book, I've done one book, then I highly recommend subscribing to the channel so you don't miss a thing. But getting into Space Force, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe I shouldn't talk about other critics' reactions, but I'm just kind of boggled by it. I've never really had a show like this where to me it's just about perfect. Like it really hits the sweet spot and everybody's just demolishing it online, and I don't really understand why. Now, to me, it's like maybe people's expectations were too high. Maybe people were expecting it to be a lot zanier and crazier than it is. And maybe the people that were looking for it to be smarter and more sophisticated were kind of disappointed by all the, zany and crazy humor. I mean, I guess it's not really that wise to speculate about what caused other people to have the opinions they have about a show, but to me it just hits this really great sweet spot. It's one of the few shows on Netflix that I've enjoyed in a long time. I really have given up on Netflix originals in a sense because I feel like they're just bargain basement trash rentals lately. But this show to me is just like, it's like Veep meets The Office, which is like two of my favorite shows, and you've got all like the political satire of Veep, and it's bashing the way that the government wastes money on different programs and on how different individuals in the government, there's this hierarchy that's kind of ridiculous, and there's just so many things that are satirized here that I think are very, very witty and very, very sophisticated in their execution. And then it's also just got these scenes that are just ridiculous and over the top and had me belly laughing. It was just great. I mean, there was one particular scene in the second episode that I was just cackling with laughter. And I know humor is really subjective, and not everyone's going to think this is that funny. It's definitely not as funny as The Office, but like, what show is? The Office is literally my favorite comedy show ever, so I don't really know that I would ever hold any comedy to that standard, especially when we just don't get good comedies anymore. And part of that, I don't want to sound like a rude person who thinks that political correctness is the curse of all existence, but like, I do think it has become harder in this day and age to make funny comedies because of political correctness. You hear all these different comedians pointing out that it's really hard to go to college campuses these days because people don't laugh at stuff. But this show, to me, it makes fun of everything, which is the mark of a good comedy. It makes fun of, liberals, it makes fun of conservatives, it makes fun of government. And, to me, it's just fun. And Steve Carell is front and center as General Mark Naird. And, there's a lot of Michael Scott in this character. He's a little bit more gruff. I mean, Steve Carell tries to put on this kind of gruff voice, but it comes and goes. And really, it just feels like Michael Scott in charge of a government branch. But that's okay. I have missed Michael Scott, and I'm okay for a character that has shades of Michael Scott. It's not going to be a downside to this show for me. And the really best character other than General Mark Naird is Dr. Adrian Mallory, played by John Malkovich, which, you know, we've seen this dynamic played out a lot. I mean, ever since Roland Emmerich's Stargate, we've seen the conflict between military men of action and the logical men of science. And it's just a great dynamic. I mean, what else is there to say? John Malkovich, I don't know that... I mean, he has some problems with his acting here. I feel like sometimes he thinks he's too good for this material. But really, I mean, that kind of works in favor of this character who kind of... The whole point of the character is he thinks that he's above everything that he's involved in, and he's being forced against his will into hijacking space for the purposes of warfare, and I think that's a hilarious dynamic. And what makes it really work, though, is it's not just them butting heads, it's also them learning to respect and cooperate with each other. And, you know, there's a lot of other great characters in this show. I wouldn't watch it for Lisa Kudrow. She's hardly in it. I think she was the other actor that I was the most interested in seeing this for. But, you know, Ben Schwartz is great as the social media manager. I think he's basically playing the same character he did in Parks and Recreation. He's a very high-energy character, though, and he kind of has an artificial vibe to him, but I dug it. You know, it worked. Otherwise, I mean, the character of Erin, played by Diana Silvers, I've heard some people say she was a standout. I don't think she was, because her character is the only character in this show that's a major character that actually isn't a part of Space Force. So to me, she's just a drag, and I could have done without her completely. You know, I don't think she was necessary, and like I said, I would have just gotten rid of her. There were wonderful cameos here by Patrick Warburton, Jane Lynch. I really, really enjoyed the rivalry between General Mark Naird and Noah Emmerich's character, who... Just, you know, I loved him in The Americans. He did a really nice job. Underappreciated actor, but here he is just at the top of his game. I think if I was going to nominate a supporting actor in the cast for an Emmy, besides John Malkovich, it would be him. And I just, like, I enjoyed this. I mean, to me, it's like it has a really high budget, and they put it to good use. Like, they didn't just, like, throw money at the screen for no reason. It makes you feel like you're actually watching people work at a branch of the military that doesn't exist at this point. And I think, you know, I have friends and relatives, my brother-in-laws can just quote The Office constantly, and to me this show seems highly quotable. It's not like bingeable in the sense that every episode ends with a cliffhanger, but it is highly bingeable in the sense that I had no desire to turn it off. I was just dying with laughter and wanting to keep going. Some episodes were better than others. It has a more... The plot is less episodic than some of Greg Daniels' other works, but it's also more episodic than Upload. But overall, of course I want a season 2, and I want it now. I mean, this season is great, and I don't really know what people are criticizing this show for. I threw out some theories, but I'm not going to speculate any further. All I can really say is if you asked me at this point what my top 5 favorite shows of the year were, this would make the cut, and I tend to think it'll still make the cut of my top 5 favorite shows at the end of the year. So that's where I'm coming from, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. I know that humor is highly subjective, so let me know if this did it for you or if I'm alone in thinking that this is just a belly buster. Also, you can watch more videos right now, and as I said before, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's my review of Space Force.